Hello, how are you? Coming to you from an undisclosed location. I know the lighting is bad, but that's what happens when you get as little support for your platform as I am from the community at large, and gotta roll with it. But I have to do the work because the work needs to be done. And I used to try to wait for my community to wake up before I did the work, but I was still starving to death, and there was no content, there was no space for us to be thoughtful. And I gotta say, all kinds of people are reaching out since I've been putting the content. So there is a community for people, but I'm still not getting the support that I should be getting, to be honest with you. So that's why we're dealing with the lighting. It's bad because you can look at some of my other videos and it's much better. um, I'm gonna go to Crossroads because we are all at a crossroads. Our society is at a crossroads. So I'm going to read this chapter, chapter 4, Crossroads. Oh, I didn't say the book. I showed you the book. Race Woman, Shirley Graham Du Bois. Let's get into it. When one of her favorite professors at Yale returned to Great Britain, Graham abandoned graduate school and returned to Indiana. Professor Aladich Nicole took more personal interest in what I was trying to do because I'm a Negro, which was the exact opposite of the response she had encountered generally in New Haven. By 1941, she was serving as Director of Adult Activities for the Phyllis Wheatley YWCA in Indianapolis. By no means had she abandoned the theater, however. During the spring of 1941, for example, New Orleans Dillard University featured a production of Elijah's Ravens. The renowned sculptor Elizabeth Catlett designed the sets, and the similarly reputable Randolph Edmonds directed. A program note mentioned that Graham was perhaps the foremost playwright among Negro women, but by this point, such predictable high praise rang hollow, for it did not seem to aid in securing a handsome livelihood. So here you go. Again, when you're doing something that's, I really say, thoughtful, you don't seem to get much support for it, at least from out of our community. And no one outside wants to support uh, black thoughtful people either. I find it very interesting who gets support from outside. Um, Yet theater was a love that was difficult to purge, so she persisted in seeking to bring entertainment and ideas to African Americans. She directed the Gilbert and Sullivan work HMS Pinafore and stressed the themes of equality and democracy. Increasingly, however, as clouds of war gathered in 1941, she turned more to ideas, particularly political ideas, in her attempt to influence the masses. Slowly but inexorably, she was drifting away from the stage and toward direct political involvement. For example, she spoke at a conference in Evansville that year on how Negro youth prepares for the social and economic challenges of a changing world. As we are again. That changing world was to include desegregation and decolonization. And Graham was arriving at the conclusion that she should play a central role in both processes. This was a natural evolution for her. Her concern for Africa and her personal experience with harsh economic realities ineluctably drove her to make firmer political commitments. She continued to drive herself relentlessly to that end. One friend told her worriedly, "Your list of labor sounds to me like the program poor old Hercules was forced to carry out." Earlier, another friend with evidence of distress reminded her to speak of doing double work, long speak of doing double work, being too tired to see or to think straight, etc. Are your nerves holding up? Have you a good appetite? Do you sleep well? Um, Despite her Oberlin, Oberlin degrees, her matriculation at Yale, her riveting literary and musical creations, and her close connection with various celebrities, Shirley Graham, the mother of two teenagers, continued to have difficulty making a living and sleeping well in 1941. Before reaching Indiana, she was dickering for a slavery of $200 for 6 weeks. She was barely in, which was barely enough for survival. Such meager sums may help to explain why she was sadly gaining a reputation as a scofflaw. Sadie Alexander complained that Graham had borrowed $400 from our sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, but has not only failed to repay this money, but has given a check without having sufficient funds in the bank for the check to be honored. Worse, she continues to refuse to meet her moral obligation to repay this money. Another creditor sent Graham newspaper clippings that reflected the Yale's matriculant's growing celebrity and added coyly, "It has occurred to me that with all the big things you are doing, you may be able to redeem your note. Maybe if you have not the money available, you will shift the loan. That is, borrow from some friend or bank and repay me." The creditor did not recognize that despite her frequent appearances in newspaper headlines, Graham remained virtually poverty stricken, and her new job in Indianapolis did not change things appreciably. I understand how she feels. Hence, when war with Hitler became imminent, Graham enlisted as a YWCA USO director and was sent to Fort Huachuca in Arizona, which became the base of the largest contingent of Negro soldiers in the country. Just as she had been forced to abandon music, economic conditions had now frog-marched her away from the theater. The war did provide opportunity. As men were dispatched overseas, some jobs at home were opened for women. The defense industry boomed on the West Coast, and African Americans abandoned Texas and Louisiana for the region stretching from Seattle to San Diego and Arizona. One scholar has observed that the employment profile of black women during the 1940s shows large gains in service work out outside homes, such as cleaning, serving, cooking in hotels, restaurants, and in factory work. That's usually what we do even today. Some kind of service work, most of us. The war boom allowed black women to improve their status. This war boom also allowed Graham to return to the West, a region of the United States then unfamiliar to many African Americans, but not to this vagabond who already had crisscrossed the nation. So there you see, um, um, thoughtful, black, and broke. That's usually how it goes. It's usually how it goes. Um, until next time, try to stay safe, try to stay sane, and hopefully we can push and fight so that it's not such a hard knock life for us.